what happened in Russia during this weekend. That's what we're talking about today. My name is Max Villman, MV Villman. I'm a former Swedish Air Force fighter pilot on the Gripen, and let's go. Okay, first of all, I want to show you some clips from the rebellion here. These are from Saturday. I'm filming this, recording this on the 26th of June. But these are some pictures from the rebellion. We see here a Wagner tank in the background, and here in front you have Wagner fighters carrying takeaway coffee whilst doing their coup. Quite strange, actually. The guy on the left is the centerpiece, of course, here, Mr. Prigozhin, and on the right you have Vladimir Putin, the other central figure in this. We have pictures of Prigozhin meeting up with Russian armed forces commanders. Everything seems quite informal, quite casual, no shots being fired. So what really happened here? That's what we're going to talk about today. Here's Mr. Prigozhin again. So first of all, I want to say that this is not going to be a very short video. Please stay for the end if you want my opinions. I will give them throughout the video as well. But we are very close to the situation. This is filmed and recorded on the 26th of June. A lot of things are quite unclear. We know some things, but some things we have not seen yet. And of course, my opinions are my opinions. You are, of course, free to make your own and have your own opinions, and you should. At this point, there is a massive information war going on from all sides, Ukrainian, Russian, different Russian factions, different Western factions, and so on and so forth. So it's important to take into consideration what has happened and then make your own analysis of the situation. I will try to help you do that today. And if you want the short version, you should probably look somewhere else, because I will try to give you a little bit more of the overview so you can have a more informed opinion than 95% of the population of the world. Okay. So with that out of the way, we will start with what is the Wagner Group. So PMC Wagner Group is a private military contractor. That's what PMC stands for. And it's a Russian-based private military contractor group, and they're called Wagner. This is their patch that they wear on the uniforms. It's owned by Prigozhin, the centerpiece of the rebellion. This guy, Prigozhin, is an oligarch, of course. And what is quite interesting or funny, or depends on how you look at it, is that it's actually illegal, as far as I've understood it, in Russia to have private military contractors. So even though it's illegal, it's when there's a will, there is a way. And this group was formed not so long ago as a way to make sure that Russia can maintain their influence in different parts of the world without actually involving their official armed forces. So they've decided to create this group, or Putin decided to let Prigozhin create this group, and Prigozhin has recruited mainly former Russian soldiers, and they were deployed in more, as far as open sources tell us, in more than 30 African countries as mercenaries, basically. Mercenaries for hire, and they could be used as security forces. They could even do offensive operations, and by African standards, of course, these troops, these fighters, Wagner, were very well trained, not just armed with AK-47s, Kalashnikovs, but also with much more heavy equipment such as artillery systems, infantry fighting vehicle, IFVs, etc., etc. So a heavy force, and of course something that has in many ways destabilized the African continent, because of course they did this not to be nice, but to exert Russian influence and to, of course, earn a lot of money. We've seen them in diamond mines, we've seen them around oil fields, etc., etc. So they were created, and they were allowed to be created to make sure that Russia can have influence without actually having to deploy any of their official forces. And then if we fast forward into the Ukraine war, the Ukraine war, as you all know, was very, very ill-planned from the Russian side. They were hoping for a very short war. It has not been that way, as we all know by now. The famous 3-day war did not happen. Russia did not win in 3 days, as the Russian military leadership and Vladimir Putin hoped. And this created a bad situation for Russia in many ways, because they were not prepared for it. They had not done massive mobilizations. They needed more troops. So where did they look? Of course, Wagner was there. it was easy to use them, even though technically illegal in Russia. So Prigozhin was called up to put his fighters to work in Russia. And also this was a good way for the Russians to be able to recruit new personnel from prisons. So they could give pardons and leniencies towards prisoners in exchange for them fighting in the war. And this was done mainly through the Wagner Group and not through the armed forces, as a way of making sure that these prisoners did not come formally into the armed forces, but instead they were employed by the Wagner Group. And this led to that Prigozhin actually had quite a lot of fighters under his belt, and he used them mainly were used in Bakhmut. Of course, they had massive casualties, but even though Bakhmut, as we all know, has very, very low strategical value, it has given Russia actually the only win that they have had since the early days of the war has been Bakhmut, the taking of Bakhmut, which of course have made Prigozhin popular because he has given Russia an actual victory. And during this fighting in Bakhmut, Prigozhin has upped his rhetoric from day to day, mainly. At first, he talked about ammunition shortage. He was not getting the supplies he needed. Of course, he was getting supplies, otherwise they wouldn't be able to do any fighting. But his rhetoric was quite offensive, and I was actually quite surprised that he got away with it. And I've taken on it's almost like boiling a frog in water. You start by raising the temperature slightly, and that's what Prigozhin has done. He has increased his rhetoric. He has mainly criticized the military leadership in Russia for being incompetent and corrupt, which is, of course, it is. But he has gotten away with it. He's gotten away with it, and he has increased his rhetoric. He has increased his criticism of the Russian military leadership. And the two main people he has actually called out, it's Sergei Shoigu. This is the Russian Minister of Defense since 2012, so more than 10 years now. And Valery Gerasimov, which is the chief of the general staff in Russia, also since 2012. And you must all see that these two persons, these two men, they are in Putin's most close proximity and, of course, are very, very highly favored by Putin. If we put this into context, the Russian invasion of Ukraine has been a monumental failure so far, and these two persons have been the two front military leaders in this campaign. And even though they catastrophically failed, they are still there. This shows us that these two people are very, very loyal to Putin. Putin believes these two men are actually very, very close allies to him. As a dictator, the most important thing is loyalty. It's more important than competency. And that is because if you don't have loyalty, you might actually get killed, fall off a balcony, and so on. So these are two of Putin's closest men, and Prigozhin, the Wagner CEO, he has managed to criticize these two and get away with it, and he has continues to do so and gotten away with it. And it has become... I was quite surprised he gotten away with it, but now, a couple of weeks ago, there was an order given by Putin to Wagner that all the fighters in Wagner Group should sign contracts directly with the Minister of Defense, or with the Russian Ministry of Defense. And this would have given them to the normal Russian Federation chain of command, thus incorporating them basically into the Russian military. And that would have been a huge blow to Prigozhin's power, of course. He probably would have continued to gotten richer, of course, but what matters most in Russia is power. And I think this is my own analysis, but I think this put Prigozhin, in a corner, basically. And he started probably in this time to plan this whole rebellion, because this would have weakened his power significantly. And once your power starts to decline in a dictatorship like Russia, the falling of the balcony might come closely thereafter. So I think he started to plan this when he saw where it was going. And the Bakhmut campaign, the victory in Bakhmut for Prigozhin, for Russia, had given Prigozhin the political opportunity to do this. So what happened then? So during the Friday, he gave a video speech basically that he released. where he actually, Prigozhin, that is, he actually gave criticism of the entire Ukrainian campaign, the core justification for invading Ukraine. He criticized it, and you must, to put this into context, we have seen reports of whole families being imprisoned in Russia because of their children writing critical things about the war in school. So that Prigozhin actually does this, it's quite over the top. And then he continued to release more audio recordings on Telegram where he criticized the Russian military leadership, that it is evil, that it must be stopped, and that he would lead this march for justice towards the Russian military. So not towards Putin, not towards Russia, but towards the Russian military leadership. And as a Western observer, so to speak, a Western person, a lot of what Prigozhin said was actually made sense. He called out that the losses were much higher than has been reported by the Russian military leadership, which is true. He called out that they had not destroyed so much Western equipment as they claimed to have, and a lot of the lies and the corruption and everything. So in that sense, it was quite a frank and I would say quite true statement from Prigozhin. He is by no means a good guy, but he has managed with the feat of uniting sort of the more right-wing military bloggers and so on, the war hawks in Russia, and also the people who are more critical against the war. So he sort of managed to unite them in one way, and the victory in Bakhmut as well has made him quite popular. The FSB, the former KGB, the security service, of course, responded with this speech by opening a criminal case against him for armed mutiny. And a lot of the Russian military leadership urged the Wagner fighters to stay in their barracks and to not do anything stupid, basically. But then on the morning of the 24th, you saw Wagner fighters entering Rostov-on-Don and taking over the military center there. And as far as I've understood, the Rostov-on-Don is the main staff is placed there, the Russian main staff for leading the campaign against Ukraine. And if we look at the map here, Don is the river, Rostov-on-Don it's here, and Russia basically controls the Dnipro River and then up until the border around, something along this. This is what they control, and their military headquarters is here. And if we see to get to Moscow, it's more than 1,000 kilometers, 12 hours by car without roadblocks. And we saw them take over Rostov-on-Don without basically firing a single shot. We saw some tanks, we saw fighters, and then the videos, and everything looked quite calm, everything looked quite easy. Prigozhin having discussions with the military leadership there. And then quite early, directly after that, we saw Wagner columns, T-90 tanks, so the most modern military equipment, SA-22 Panzer systems, the most modern Russian military equipment in Wagner hands, being moved on trucks, etc., with soldiers towards Moscow. So the march of justice was started, basically. And during the day, we got more and more reports. They got further and further. Putin released his speech in the morning and basically said this is something close to 1917, like the Russian Revolution 1917, which was basically a huge betrayal. And Prigozhin in turn responded, and this is I think is the first time he actually called out Putin directly, that we will have a new president soon, the president has lost it and we will have a new president soon. So this was the first time that he directly called out Putin. And during the day we had more and more pictures of Wagner columns and advancing towards Moscow. Of course, it's a long drive. We also saw some roadblocks being put on, etc., etc. But then, as a surprise to many of us watching this during the night, there was some sort of deal brokered by Lukashenko, the Belarus dictator, and Prigozhin, which basically ended with Prigozhin ordering Wagner troops to get back to their barracks, and Prigozhin would get asylum in Belarus. And everything sort of anticlimactically stopped there. We also have, I want to show you this if I can find it. This TikTok video. These are Wagner soldiers leaving Rostov-on-Don. You see them getting hugs. Applauses. And before that, during the day, we had seen Wagner soldiers getting water and supplies from the civilian population of Rostov. And Russia is not a normal democracy as we think about it in the Western world. It's a dictatorship, and there came a new strongman, so to speak, in this case Wagner, and it was applauded when they left and when they also were there. So it's a different kind of mindset that we must take into account when analyzing this situation. So why did it happen, this, and was this a big maskirovka from Putin's side just to move the Wagner around, etc., etc.? Well, I think to analyze this, we need to look at how does this make Russia and Putin look? And I think it's without question that this has made Russia and Putin look weak. So with that in mind, is this orchestrated by Putin? I think not. He would never orchestrate anything that will make him look weak. What Prigozhin gets out of this is difficult to say. Of course, him being alive now makes Putin look weaker. Every day he is alive, so it's difficult to see what he hoped to gain from this. And now he's basically, officially at least, been escaping to Belarus for asylum. So it's difficult to see where this might go for him personally. Probably Wagner will be in the Russian chain of command after this. So in that way, that has not changed what has been ordered already. So it's very difficult to see what this will lead to, other than it has, of course, brought out cracks that I think most of us knew were there in Russia, in Putin's leadership, in Putin's grip of the nation. That those cracks have now been put out into the daylight, and they are very, very visible for the Russian population, for the West, for Ukraine. So I think all in all, it has weakened Russia's stance. We will see where it goes from now. So, of course, this is recorded on the 26th of June, and new information will emerge from here, and we will see what happens. And now we have seen the FSB reports that they are investigating. They have entering into Wagner fighters' homes. We also had a lot of Russian Federation military units going over to Wagner's side. What will happen with them now? Their loyalty is, of course, in question from Putin. So I would imagine there will be some cleansing going on now. And all in all, that will also, of course, contribute to this whole weakening of the Russian military. So is this perhaps the momentum that the Ukrainian counteroffensive will need to actually get going, because they haven't accomplished much so far? Who knows? I think it has at least weakened Russia, as I mentioned. But I will stop there. I encourage you all to continue to monitor the situation and to to make sure that you make your own informed opinion and not just speculate, but look at what's happening. How does this make the different players look? Who benefits from this information and so on? I think this goes for the entire Ukraine war. So with that being said, I will end it here. If you liked the video, please like the video and subscribe to my channel for the algorithm. Turn on notifications. If you want to support me by buying me a coffee, there's a link to Ko-Fi here. That helps me a lot with this. And until next time, you can also subscribe to my social media. But until next time, as we said, fly safe.